Dark winds howl across the fjords, the sea crashes against the cliffs, and from the mist a figure emerges, cloaked, silent, and holding a staff taller than herself. She's neither queen nor warrior, yet kings kneel before her, and even gods listen. The Vikings called her the Velva, the seeress, the sorceress, the wanderer between worlds. But who were these women, and how did they wield such terrifying power in a world ruled by men? Stay till the end, because the truth about the Völvas will reveal something darker than witchcraft, something that terrified even Odin himself. The word Völva comes from the Old Norse völur, meaning staff, the one who carries the wand. But in Viking culture, that staff was more than a walking stick. It was a declaration, a symbol of control over the unseen. The Völva wasn't just a fortune teller, she was the spiritual authority of the North. She could summon visions, alter fate, curse enemies, and foretell the death of kings. Her power didn't come from temples or written words, it came from Seidr, the mysterious Norse magic that bound destiny itself. And yet, her existence was both revered and feared. She walked alone, unbound by family, unclaimed by any man. But how did a woman like that survive in a world of axes, oaths, and blood? That answer lies in the magic she commanded. Seidr was not the sorcery of fireballs or charms. It was subtler, more dangerous. It was the art of weaving fate, of seeing the threads that tied men to their destinies and pulling them apart. A Velva could enter trances that blurred the line between life and death. She would chant ancient songs, her voice echoing like wind through bone. As her followers sang with her, she drifted into the otherworld, where gods whispered secrets about what was to come. Imagine it, a smoky hall, men silent in awe, as the Völva's voice trembles through the air. Her eyes roll back, and suddenly she speaks of storms yet to come, wars yet to be fought, and kings yet to die. To control Seidr was to trespass on divine territory, and in Norse belief, even Odin himself had to learn it from women. But that knowledge came at a cost, because Seidr was power, and power always invites fear, and nowhere is that fear more visible than in the graves they left behind. In the late 10th century, at a ring fortress called Firkat in Denmark, archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary. The skeleton of a woman, buried with silver jewelry, bronze bowls, exotic herbs, and most importantly, a long iron staff. Around her waist, small amulets shaped like miniature wands. Beneath her head, the remains of hallucinogenic seeds. Every piece whispered the same truth. This was no ordinary woman. This was a Völva. The staff wasn't decoration. It was her weapon of power. The seeds, tools for trance and prophecy. The wealth in her grave, proof that she was honored or feared enough to be buried like a noble. But her isolation also tells another story. The Völva lived on the edge of society, respected but untouchable, a walking paradox of holiness and danger. And wherever she went, the world seemed to bend around her. Imagine the longhouse, torches flickering, warriors silent, the air thick with smoke. At the center sits the Völva, her staff resting on her knees, her eyes half closed. She didn't beg for attention. She commanded it. Even chieftains spoke softly around her. When invited into villages, she was treated like a priestess, given a high seat, fine food, and gold. But when the ritual began, all eyes turned to her. Drums pounded, voices hummed. Her chant began, rhythmic, deep, dangerous. Witnesses said her voice could pull the soul out of the body, that her song could reach the gods. When she spoke prophecies, no one dared interrupt. But her power wasn't just in her words, it was in the silence that followed them. And those who doubted her, they rarely lived to do so twice. Even Odin, the Allfather, god of wisdom, war, and death, trembled before the knowledge of the Völva. In the ancient poem Völuspa, the greatest prophecy of the Viking world, Odin performs an act so desperate it borders on sacrilege. He rides to the underworld and awakens a dead seeress from her grave. The world is silent as he calls to her. The air thickens, the earth shifts, and the dead woman stirs. When she opens her eyes, it's not in obedience, but in irritation. She knows who summons her, and she warns him that the secrets she holds are not meant for the living. But Odin insists. He demands to know the beginning and the end, how the world was born, and how it will die. Reluctantly, the Völva speaks. Her voice is ancient, echoing across the cosmos as she recounts the birth of the gods, the shaping of the 9 realms, and finally, the doom of all creation. She tells him of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, when the sky will burn, the seas will boil, and the wolf Fenrir will devour the sun. She does not speak with fear, but with the calm of inevitability, and Odin listens, helpless. Because in that moment, even the god who hung himself on Yggdrasil to gain wisdom realizes that her knowledge comes from a place beyond divine reach. The Velva is not a servant of the gods. She is the voice of fate itself, the reflection of inevitability. And that's what made her so dangerous. For in a world ruled by men and gods alike, there is nothing more terrifying than a woman who knows how it all ends. In Viking society, men ruled by strength, but the Völva ruled by the unseen, and that frightened them. Seidr was considered ergi, unmanly, because it required surrendering control, channeling feminine power. For a man to practice Seidr was to invite shame, yet even Odin did it. That paradox, the male god learning forbidden female magic, shook the foundations of Viking belief. To the men of that age, the Völva was both sacred and scandalous. A woman who could foretell your death, and perhaps cause it. They called her witch. But the word didn't mean what it does now. It meant a woman whose power cannot be measured by men. And that's why they both protected her and burned her memory. If you're fascinated by how these women reshaped Norse belief, make sure to like this video and subscribe, because every week we uncover the darker, hidden truths history tried to bury. And the next story might just change what you thought you knew about the ancient world. Her staff, the Seidr, was more than a tool. It was a key. It symbolized her connection to the spirits, a bridge between the physical and the divine. She wore blue and black, the colors of night and the underworld. Around her neck hung beads, charms, bones, each carrying a spell or a secret. And in her hand, the distaff, used for spinning wool, became a weapon of fate itself, echoing the Norns who spun the destinies of all beings. The Völva didn't fight with blades or axes. Her weapon was belief. Because to the Vikings, faith wasn't abstract. It was power that could move through the world like wind or fire. And wherever the Völva walked, people believed. And what people believe becomes real. But belief has a price. When Christianity crept across Scandinavia, the Völva's power began to fade. The new faith had no place for wandering priestesses, no tolerance for magic, no patience for women who spoke to gods outside the church. Laws were written. The word Seidr became sorcery. And sorcery became death. One by one, the songs were silenced, the staffs buried. The women who once shaped kings' destinies were erased from history, or rewritten as monsters. But the memory never vanished. Even in the sagas, long after the old ways were gone, the shadow of the Völva lingered. Because some powers cannot be buried. In every age, societies fear women who don't fit, those who speak when silence is expected, who see what others cannot. The Völva was the embodiment of that defiance. She lived without permission, wielded power without title, and served forces beyond human authority. Today, we call her a witch, a seer, a myth. But in truth, she represents something deeper. The eternal struggle between order and chaos, conformity and freedom. And maybe that's why her story still calls to us. Because somewhere deep down, we remember that once upon a time, power didn't belong to thrones. It belonged to those brave enough to walk alone into the mist. The Völva's story is a mirror, not of superstition, but of power. A reminder that the most dangerous kind of magic is knowledge. If you've made it this far, you've walked through the fires of Norse prophecy and seen how belief can outlive empires. So before you leave, give this video a like to help others discover the forgotten side of history. Subscribe and ring the bell, because our next story unearths another secret the world tried to erase. The warriors who fought not for glory, but revenge. Click the video now and step deeper into the shadows of history.